Our Time for All Ages is an Ethiopian tale titled Fire, Water, Truth, and Falsehood. Long ago, fire, water, truth, and falsehood lived together in one large house. Although all were polite toward each other, they kept their distance. Truth and falsehood sat on opposite sides of the room. Fire constantly leapt out of water's path. One day they went hunting together. They found a large number of cattle and began driving them home to their village. "Let's share these cattle equally," said Truth as they traveled across the grasslands. "This is the fair way to divide our captives." No one disagreed with Truth except Falsehood. Falsehood wanted more than an equal share, but kept quiet about it for the moment. As the four hunters traveled back to the village, Falsehood went secretly to Water and whispered, "But more powerful than fire. Destroy fire, and then there will be more cattle for each of us." Water flowed over fire, bubbling and steaming until fire was gone. Water meandered along, cheerfully thinking about more cattle for itself. Falsehood, meanwhile, whispered to Truth, "Look, see for yourself. Water has killed fire. Let's leave Water, who has cruelly destroyed our warm-hearted friend. We must take the cattle high in the mountains to graze." As Truth and Falsehood traveled up the mountain, Water tried to follow, but the mountain was too steep, and water could not flow upwards. Water washed down upon itself, splashing and swirling around rocks as it tumbled down the slope. Look and see, water is still tumbling down the mountainsides to this day. Truth and Falsehood arrived at the mountaintop. Falsehood turned to Truth and said in a loud voice, "I am more powerful than you. You will be my servant. I am your master. All the cattle belong to me." Truth rose up and spoke out, "I will not be your servant." They battled and battled. Finally, they brought the argument to Wind to decide who was master. Wind didn't know. Wind blew all over the world to ask people whether truth or falsehood was more powerful. Some people said a single word of falsehood can completely destroy truth. Others insisted, like a small candle in the dark, truth can change every situation. Wind finally returned to the mountain and said, "I have seen that falsehood is very powerful, but it can only rule where truth has stopped struggling to be heard." And it's been that way ever since. I had planned for a responsive reading at this point in the service, but when I was practicing, I realized it would be better read after the sermon, because the reading is the essence of the entire service. So we'll postpone it for now. My prayer this morning was written by the Reverend Stephen Schick. Please close your eyes or center yourself in whatever way works for you as we enter into a time of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, so much of my time is spent trying to discover my true identity. Who am I? What am I to do with my one wonderful and marvelous life? Probing for answers to these questions, I touch the startling truth that the I that I seek can only be found in relationship to the pulsing force of life and the people who surround me. The psalmist cried to God, saying, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence?" Yet he knew there was no escaping this relationship. And so it is with us. Our true identity is to be found in the relationships we create and is fashioned in the spaces that separate us. Today, I pray for the wisdom to live my life, not in isolation, but in the sacred space of togetherness. Amen and namaste. When I was 19 years old, my grandfather was in the hospital, dying from lung cancer. I overheard a conversation between my mother and aunt that I've never forgotten. My aunt was concerned because she wasn't sure my grandfather was saved. My mother said she wasn't concerned at all and didn't want to go anywhere he wasn't welcome, because he was the best man she ever knew. My aunt responded saying, "Being good doesn't get you into heaven." Both of them dearly loved their father, and both of them were arguing for beliefs each firmly believed, and they tried to validate those beliefs. This is one example of personal validation, trying to validate our beliefs, our stories. And the opposite of validation is rejection, or perceived rejection. The arguments my mother and aunt were making involved both validation and rejection, each of them taking opposite positions, in essence, rejecting the other's beliefs. Now I'll share something I believe. We should all be conscious of how we need to validate our personal beliefs and how that affects others, especially when those beliefs may be based on some fiction or even on our own imagination. Validation and the need for validation is a constant throughout our lives. I write and give sermons because I want to share some thought or idea that I believe will be meaningful. But they aren't always meaningful to everyone because we all have different needs and perspectives. I also believe I'm not special as a minister. Many ministers believe in some form of mystical calling, which they then believe validates their thoughts and gives them some sort of authority. I don't believe that either. But I do believe in psychology, and that we are almost hardwired to need validation. We need to know if something is working for us or not. For example, we need to be satisfied with our food and know that what we are eating meets our needs. But too much food isn't a good thing, so we need to find balance. Another example may be when we believe we've found love and companionship. We feel validated. And the opposite is also true. When it turns out to be unrequited love, we feel utterly rejected. Once again, finding some balance is very important. A need to share our opinions or thoughts, a pastoral calling, and a need to find love are all different types of beliefs. None are good or bad, they're just beliefs. But why do we hold on to beliefs, especially when they're harmful or outright lies? In many cases, beliefs are just stories we either tell ourselves or we accept from others we believe in. Often, we allow those stories to define who we are in some crucial way. But when those stories trap us or harm those we love, we should consider abandoning or changing our stories. Telling ourselves these fictions is just a part of who we are. Once again, I believe it's almost hardwired into us because we must meet our actual needs in order to survive. Unfortunately, the same mechanism which is used to ensure our actual needs are met and validated confuses our beliefs with those needs and often goes to great lengths to validate them as well. Religions have exploited this confusion for eons. The need to avoid a tiger simply isn't the same as the need to avoid hell or someone from another religion. One is a real danger, and the others are simply religious beliefs, which are intangible and probably not real. Professor Chris Neubauer explains why we do this in his book, No Self, No Problem. And for me, it's fascinating. Professor Neubauer's work is based on scientific studies and experiments, and they show that the left side of our brain acts as an interpreter for the data we receive through our senses. This data includes opinions from others, along with actual factual data. The interpreter then makes decisions based on the information. Unfortunately, the interpreter is often completely and totally wrong. One study found that the left brain's role is one of beliefs and interpretation, and that it had little regard for reality in making up its interpretations. Another study showed that the left brain was simply making up a story about reality without any regard to the truth whatsoever. Other studies strongly suggest that we live our lives under the direction of the interpreter. And for most of us, the left brain interpreter is a master that we're not aware even exists. We may become angry, offended, sexually aroused, happy, or fearful, and we don't question the authenticity of these thoughts and experiences. While it's clear that these experiences are happening to us, we somehow retain the idea that we are in charge of it all. The fictions created by the left brain are actually addressed in the spiritual traditions of the East. Those traditions know that we make them up. Buddhism in particular recognizes these fictions and claims that realizing and accepting them as fictions can lead to an end to suffering. That is to say, when you become conscious of the interpreter, you are then truly free to choose no longer to take the interpretations so seriously. In other words, when you realize that everyone's brain is constantly interpreting in ways that are subjective and often inaccurate or completely incorrect, you might find yourself able to grasp something as just an opinion, rather than something absolute like, this is the way it is. You begin to see your judgments as simply a different line in the sand than those of others. When someone approaches you with a "this is the way it is" attitude, you can appreciate that this other person is dominated by the left brain and that they are a servant to its master. As a result, there's no need to take their actions or attitudes personally. It's a biological function that they have not yet recognized or learned to control. This small perspective shift is enough to change how we live with each other and with ourselves. But we shouldn't forget, people die and kill for beliefs all the time. But not just any beliefs, only the ones they believe in without recognizing that they are only beliefs. Let's also be realistic. Most of our beliefs aren't life and death beliefs. And we put our ordinary beliefs to the test every day by frequently attempting to validate them. I know because I do it many times every day. The validation of our personal beliefs is insidious. Something I do is when I listen to another person. I often listen to respond instead of listening to understand them and their particular concerns. Without truly listening, my left brain believes that I can easily solve their problems, when that may not be possible. Listening in order to respond is for personal validation. Listening in order to understand is actually just common courtesy and can be an act of compassion. After we truly understand, maybe we can then actually be of some assistance. That assistance could range from doing absolutely nothing to using our knowledge to provide some useful form of help. But first, we have to listen and not immediately jump to validating our belief in our own knowledge and the often erroneous belief that their problems are easily solved by our experience. Just feeling the need to comment is often for self-validation. Is it really necessary to comment? Yes, sometimes it can be very beneficial, but many times it isn't. Discernment and balance are both required. Another example of a wayward belief also applies directly to me. For most of my young life, I couldn't gain weight, and I believed I was too skinny. I could eat absolutely anything I wanted, but that was because of my youthful metabolism. Over time, my metabolism changed and I gained weight. So much, in fact, I became pre-diabetic. My reality changed, but not my story, because I was still eating whatever I wanted. I'd tell myself I deserved the cookie or the 2 donuts that I had on the way here this morning, or the treat or the extra serving of whatever I was eating. That's how I justified my belief and my overeating. But in reality, I don't have a difficult life. Treats were readily available and I didn't deserve them. And they were in fact harming me. So I had to change my story, my belief, and accept my new reality, a slower metabolism. I will never have my youthful metabolism again, and I will always have to be conscious of my calorie consumption. The belief that we deserve more food, more alcohol, a cigarette, or any of the other guilty pleasures is simply a lie we tell ourselves to justify our belief that we are deserving. Here again, honest judgment and balance are required. But sometimes balance doesn't work either. Alcoholics realize that they can never drink again. Needing validation as a child is actually good for proper development. But expecting validation for personal beliefs as an adult can be rather childish. Yes, personal validation for your beliefs comes in all shapes and sizes. Some are good and some are unnecessary. There are countless ways we receive and seek out validation for our beliefs. If someone is good at sports, strong, fast, and agile, those people enjoy winning, and they receive a lot of validation just for doing what they are good at doing. The act of winning provides immense personal validation for talents, which are generally just a natural part of who they are. And unfortunately, they often believe their worth is tied to their physical abilities. Those same people are frequently at a loss when their talents and skills begin to fail, because validation can be addictive. And without that validation, they feel deprived. The same can be true for beautiful women or handsome men. They derive a lot of benefit or validation simply because they have been blessed with physical traits prized by our society. They sometimes believe their worth is tied to their good looks. They too often feel at a loss when they age and begin to lose what they once took for granted. And highly intelligent people aren't exempt either. As children, they often receive a lot of praise and validation for their intelligence. This gift doesn't usually fade with age, but their situations change, and their particular intellectual skills may not be relevant for every adult life situation. Their beliefs about their gift need to adapt to the new situations, or their left brain interpreter, which also loves validation, could get out of hand. Validation, no matter where it comes from, can be addictive. But when our left brain takes over and constantly needs validation, it can become a tyrant, one that is never satisfied. Stoic philosopher Seneca summed it up like this: our mind is sometimes a king and sometimes a tyrant. A king, by attending to what is honorable, protecting the good health of the body in its care. But an uncontrolled, desire-fueled, overindulged mind is turned from a king into that most feared and detested thing, a tyrant. The tyrant is our own left brain, always demanding or expecting more validation. But we don't have to let it win. There are countless ways to take control, allowing us to experience life honestly, warts and all, without needing to constantly validate our erroneous beliefs. One way is to stop, slow down, and pay attention. As long as you're on autopilot, you'll always be under left brain control, the tyrant. When you slow down and pay attention, you can begin to allow the reality going on all around you to seep in. You're then able to make more conscious and thoughtful decisions. One way to slow down is to meditate. We don't sit in meditation to become good meditators. We meditate so that we will be more awake in our lives. Those aren't my words. They're from Pema Chodron's book, Comfortable with Uncertainty. She also writes, by weaving our opinions, prejudices, strategies, and emotions into some solid reality, we try to make a big deal out of ourselves, out of our pain, out of our problems. Here Chodron is specifically addressing our left brain interpreter. She goes on, but things are not as solid, predictable, or seamless as they seem. When we meditate, our practice is to watch our thoughts arise, label them thinking, and return to the breath. Wisdom is a fluid process, not something concrete that can be added up or measured. Life is the direct immediacy of our lived experiences. Trying to hold on to any of it by always supporting our beliefs, by buying into our particular stories, only blocks our wisdom. We must give attention to the present moment. We make the choice, moment by moment, to be fully here. Attending to our present moment with both mind and body is a way of being tender with ourselves, with others, and with the world. This quality of attention is inherent in our ability to love. The most fundamental aggression and harm we can do to ourselves is to remain ignorant by not having the courage and respect to look at ourselves honestly and gently. It's a lifetime journey to relate honestly to the immediacy of our experience and to respect ourselves enough not to judge it. Because of mindfulness, we see our desires and our aggression, our jealousy and our ignorance. We don't act on them, we just see them. Without mindfulness, we don't see them and they proliferate. Whatever life we're currently experiencing is a vehicle for waking up. Yes, validation for our personal beliefs is insidious. At least it is for me. But not all validation is bad or unnecessary. Saying thanks for help or for a job well done is validating. Praising someone's well-deserved accomplishment is validating. Praising a child as they accomplish more and more is validating. Once again, discernment is necessary. Stoic author and philosopher Ryan Holiday has another perspective that he believes works. He says, the pause is everything. He then shares a story about George Washington, who also followed Stoic philosophy. Holiday writes, according to Thomas Jefferson, Washington never acted until every circumstance, every consideration was maturely weighed. Washington had the same initial reactions we all do, but he tried to put every situation up for a kind of review, searching for a better light to explain and understand it. We know that between every stimulus and its response, every piece of information and our decision, there is a space. It's a brief space, to be sure, but one with room enough to insert our philosophy and evaluate the veracity of our assumed beliefs. Will we use it? Use it to think? Use it to examine? Use it to wait for more information? Or will we give in to first impressions, to harmful instincts and old patterns? The pause is everything. The one before we jump to conclusions, prejudge, assume the worst, rush to solve our children's problems for them, force a problem into some kind of box, assign blame, take offense, turn away in fear. There is a higher self and a lower self. This aligns with two types of mental processing we do, which psychologists call thinking fast and thinking slow. Fast is often the lower self. Gut instinct is the lower self. Slower thinking is the higher self. Slow is the rational, philosophical, principled self. Really thinking about things. Really thinking about who you want to be. We pause. We gather ourselves. We put it up to the light. We ask, is this true? Is this actually as upsetting as it feels? Is this as scary or annoying as I first thought? Don't let fear or anxiety or prejudice decide for you. Don't let your temper decide either. And those are Ryan Holiday's words. I would simply add, don't let your need to validate your beliefs decide. Let reason and reality help you make your decisions. Personal validation is something we all do. And crusading for some of our beliefs can also feel very validating, especially those beliefs that are for the common good, like those for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But a constant need to validate ourselves and many of our beliefs, which in fact are just opinions, is often our left brain interpreter taking charge of our lives. Those interpretations are often not accurate and frequently not important to others around us. So take back control from your left brain interpreter and let reality, good or bad, be your guide. It doesn't matter how you take back control from the left brain tyrant, through meditation, mindfulness, or simply taking a pause and allowing yourself to truly reflect on the genuine realities all around you. After you take back control from your left brain tyrant, then you can be fully conscious with your actions. Take over and don't be a slave to the need for personal validation. Amen and namaste. So our responsive reading today is number 657, written by one of my favorite UU women, Sophia Lyon Falls. And it's titled, It Matters What We Believe, number 657. Some beliefs are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness and the feeling of being especially privileged. Other beliefs are expansive and lead the way into wider and deeper sympathies. Some beliefs are like shadows, clouding children's days with fears of unknown calamities. Other beliefs are like sunshine, blessing children with the warmth of happiness. Some beliefs are divisive, separating the saved from the unsaved, friends from enemies. Other beliefs are bonds in a world community where sincere differences beautify the pattern. Some beliefs are like blinders, shutting off the power to choose one's own direction. Other beliefs are like gateways, opening wide vistas for exploration. Some beliefs weaken a person's selfhood. They blight the growth of resourcefulness. Other beliefs nurture self-confidence and enrich the feeling of personal worth. Some beliefs are rigid, like the body of death, impotent in a changing world. Other beliefs are pliable, like the young sapling, ever growing with the upward thrust of life. So hold on to your hymnal there. Please join me